Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host, NFL insider, and contributor to Football Night in America. Don't have any update so far. Has the NFL or Buffalo Bills said that when they could provide a further update on his health, Mike?
The last update that we've seen, Dan, 1:48 a.m. from the Buffalo Bills explaining that Damar Hamlin had cardiac arrest, heartbeat was restored, and is at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center sedated and in critical condition. There's been no further update from that. Jordan Rooney, a marketing representative and a friend of Damar Hamlin and the Hamlin family, was making the rounds this morning, Good Morning America and elsewhere, saying they're taking it minute by minute at this point, confirming he is sedated, and doctors continue to evaluate and treat Damar Hamlin.
The NFL's reaction to this, as far as the game itself, what kind of time frame do you think the NFL is under to let us know, is this a tie? Can they play this game? The importance of it?
There was a conference call held just after midnight, and Jeff Miller, the NFL's chief spokesperson, said that there will be a conversation at the appropriate time about the game, that's currently not a consideration. The reality, though, is time is passing as we await the appropriate time. And I agree it's not the appropriate time for the NFL to make any decisions. But 4 days from now, the Week 18 games begin. 5 days from now, the Bills are due to play a team other than the Bengals, the Patriots. The Bengals are due to play the Ravens. So at some point, decisions will make themselves. And Dan, I see two possibilities here. I hadn't thought of declaring the game a tie. My thought was, number one, you play Bills-Bengals this weekend, bump Week 18 back, wipe out the 2-week break between the conference championships and the Super Bowl like they did back in 2001, where Week 2 was taken out and tacked on to the end of the season. The 2-week bye was eliminated. That's one possibility. Mm-hmm. The other possibility would be to say, game's not going to be played. Bills and Bengals play 16. Playoff positioning will be based on winning percentage. They were ready to do that in 2020 during the pandemic when they assumed there would be canceled games, and there just weren't. The other reality, though, Dan, is when will these players be ready to play? Yeah. The top concern is Damar Hamlin. The secondary concern is the mental health of the players who witnessed it. Think of the trauma that the rest of us experienced seeing it through TV. If you were there on the field and you experienced it firsthand, lived it firsthand, when will you be ready to play football again? I don't know the answer to that question, and I think right now nobody knows the answer to that question. That is something that the NFL needs to take up again at the appropriate time, and we don't know when the appropriate time will be.
Speaking of the game, the NFL, kind of the time lapse of were they going to play, were they going to come back? Joe Buck mentioned 4 times that you're going to get a five-minute warm-up period and then come back and play. The NFL said, no, that's not the case. Why the miscommunication between the NFL and what ESPN was reporting?
Dan, the best I can glean from this, because Troy Vincent, the executive VP of football operations on the conference call I mentioned earlier, was very, very clear. He said, I don't know where that came from, and it's insensitive, it's ridiculous to even have that out there. Now, it's possible that standard procedure, when there is an injury that stops the game for a certain period of time, that there's a minimal amount of time that goes by, that they'll say the teams get 5 minutes to get ready to resume, that someone was operating off of that manual until they realized we're dealing with a situation for which there was no precedent, there is no manual, and that became the right solution. So they got to the right place, and it may just be as folks were trying to do the best they could along the way, someone thought that would be the procedure that would be implemented. But it became abundantly clear that the teams were not in a position that they could continue last night, and the NFL made the right decision at the end of the day.
But I wonder, did the NFL make this decision, or did the head coaches and the captains make this decision that they weren't ready to play football? Because it felt like they were passing the phone around. You saw the 2 head coaches conferring. The NFL rep is there. I get the sense that maybe it was the quarterbacks and coaches who said, we're not playing football. What do you think?
What was said last night by Troy Vincent was he was basically the point person communicating by phone with the referee for the game, Sean Smith, who was talking to the coaches. Troy Vincent speaking with the coaches, Troy Vincent speaking with Commissioner Roger Goodell, and also NFL Players Association Executive Director DeMaurice Smith. And they got to that point. Now, look, if the players just can't play, then somebody needs to be the first one to say, hey, NFL, we just can't do this, because the system is set up, Dan. And this is where the unprecedented nature of this, I think, is most clearly crystallized. Players get injured all the time. The NFL is one giant football machine consisting of interchangeable parts, and we've heard next man up for years. So somebody gets injured, that person is replaced, and the game goes on. All sorts of various different types and magnitudes of injury. This is the first time that the injury created an event so horrifying that the players could not continue. The coaches could not continue. The game could not continue. And again, there's no manual, there's no precedent. Next time it happens, and God forbid it doesn't happen anytime soon, if ever, there will be a precedent that can be drawn upon. But this was the creation of the precedent, and I think that's why there may be some miscommunication, misunderstanding. You would expect misunderstanding at a time like this when people are struggling to understand what's happening. So somebody had to be the one to say, I don't think we can do it. And the coaches and the quarterbacks, the team leaders, would be the ones in the best position to be the ones to say that.
Talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host. I was also wondering about Damar Hamlin's tackle on T. Higgins, because you're taught now you can't lead with the crown of your helmet. Like the tackle was different. That, he kind of tackled him with his chest. He took the hit there. I don't know if these defensive backs now are conditioned that they have to learn how to tackle differently. And I don't know if that impacted this at all, because he took the brunt of T. Higgins' helmet to his chest.
Yeah, Dan, that's a good point. But the thing that I drew from it, I didn't notice anything that seemed out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
As we now are conditioned to watch defensive players tackle receivers, because we don't see what we used to see all the time. The hit last Monday night by Derwin James of the Chargers on Ashton Dulin of the Colts, that was commonplace. We see it now, and we're like, oh, my God, I can't believe that. So the game has changed, and with the concern about head and neck injuries, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that there are all sorts of other ways that you can get seriously injured playing football. The head and the neck are the most common concern now. But Chris Sims almost died in 2006 because he had a ruptured spleen that wasn't detected until after the game ended, and he'd been hit multiple times by various Carolina Panthers defensive players, and he almost died, not on the field, in the locker room, on the way to the hospital, at the hospital from blood loss. But there are plenty of other serious injuries you can have when you play football at any level, and last night underscores that.
All right. Once again, if we get an update on Damar Hamlin, we will certainly pass that on to you. There's other football to talk about with Mike Florio. The Jim Harbaugh back to the NFL, does it feel real?
I mean, Dan, I'll be candid with you. I've quit thinking about everything else right now, and that's a decision that each individual has to make, but I don't care about Jim Harbaugh right now.
Okay.
I really don't. We're not covering anything else until this Damar Hamlin thing is resolved.
All right. Mike, thank you. We appreciate your time.
All right, Dan.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host, NFL Insider with Football Night in America. We cover what we cover, and our approach is still that these are NFL stories, and I certainly respect Mike's approach to this. And even when we reached out to him, he said, I don't know if I have anything to add, and I said, I'd still like your perspective on this. So